Corporation, brought to you by Grey Orange and supported by LSC. We would like to thank our registration partner MapMyIndia, CX partner Zendesk, session partner Shiplight, silver partner Fredron, knowledge partner Supply Chain Labs, and industry partner PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Sriraj Deshmukh and I will be your host for this session. We are now moving on to our next session on digitization at the bottom of the pyramid. I would like to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Mr. Badrinath Setlur, Value Delivery Lead at Pando Corporation. Next, I would like to welcome the panelists, Mr. Rajesh Ramakrishnan, CEO, Perfetti Pando. And last but not the least, Ms. Sapna Ahuja, who is the CEO at MapMyIndia. Now I would request Mr. Badrinath to take over from here and to start the trialogue.
Thank you. A warm welcome to our panelists. So our topic is digitization at the bottom of the pyramid. What that is, we will get to in a second. But I first thought I'll help you set the context of what these two companies that we are talking to does, right? Srijit said, Rajesh, Mr. Rajesh is the managing director of Perfetti. What do they do? Hey, if you had heard of Happily, Center Fresh, Happy Day, right? Tremendous, sugary stuff in the mouth that I've enjoyed many times as well. So that is what they do. Next, we have Sapna as part of, she is the Chief Operations Officer at MapMyIndia. What do they do is a geospatial, data technology. Basically, they are helping map. It is not just 2D, it is also in 3D for us to be able to, do geotagging, do, what Uber does, that kind of work. Without much ado, I will get into the topic of today, right, which is digitization at the bottom of the pyramid. What do we mean by the bottom of the pyramid, right? I mean, you've heard digitization. Enterprise is doing a lot of digitization. They talk about, BOPIS, which is, buy online, pick up in store. Hey, you can buy your car, you can model your car. That is at the top of the pyramid that we see, marketing. In the middle of the pyramid also, there is a lot of digitization, right? There is automated warehouses, just-in-time. Those also to a large extent, supply chain planning. A lot of those also at the middle of the pyramid have been digitized. But what about bottom of the pyramid, right? Whether it is a transporter who's trying to move your products to a truck. I mean, does he have a platform to raise an invoice online, or is it still done through faxes, emails, phone calls? A small retail, I mean, are they able to show you proof of delivery or accept a delivery and do what is called as a electronic proof of delivery, right? That is what we mean, for example, at the bottom of the pyramid. So let us go to Mr. Rajesh and ask his thoughts. Mr. Rajesh, for example, I know you do a big push into the rural area. What are some initiatives you've launched, and what are some of the responses that you've been getting so far?
Sure. Thanks, Badri, and good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege being with all of you on this session, and hi, Sapna, as well. So if you look at it, India is a huge country, of course, and with over 700,000 villages, and they contribute to 65 to 70% of the country in terms of population. So clearly, it's a segment that you cannot ignore. And obviously, there are a lot of challenges, but I also would like to think that there are a lot of opportunities as well. So before I answer the question in terms of what we do, if I were to just look at some of the challenges that are there, of course, is the sheer scale and dispersion of the villages across the country. That's a challenge. Related to it, poor infrastructure, which of course is getting slightly better. The trickling down of technology, again, we are seeing some progress there, but that still continues to be a challenge. And if you look at it, there is also this challenge of high cost of distribution and high time taken for distribution. So by the time the product from the factories in the city reaches the village right at the end, there is a cost attached to it and there is a time. right? And I think some of the other challenges are also coming around the space of, say, for example, warehouse infrastructure. So, you can't directly reach it to so many thousand outlets, but where do you keep these products in the interim in terms of certain areas where you could store them, etc. So these are some of the challenges. But having said that, I think all is not doom and gloom. There are clearly certain opportunities as well. And if you look at it, I think the consumer in rural areas are becoming more literate. They are also having money to spend thanks to, I think, consistent good monsoon over the last few years. So the disposable income has gone up. And therefore, they are actually seeking out brands. They are also aspirational. So that's, I think, good news to consumer product companies. Not just consumer product companies, actually any branded product companies, because there is a demand being generated from them. I think the government is doing a lot of stuff also, right? In fact, I was recently reading about this program called Rurban, which is a combination of rural and urban. Rurban, which is really about identifying clusters of settlement and then saying, basis socio-economic opportunities, and then really, uh, trying to push them up into moving from rural to urban. So there is like a mid space which exists, and I think that's a nice segue to get people to move into the urban part of this thing. Technology is definitely becoming more and more relevant and being percolating down. So I think that's that's just a landscape in terms of what are some of the good things that are happening. Now, if I deep dive down one level to what we are doing as a company, for us, nearly 1/3 of the business comes from the rural markets, and we cover. You showed a number. We cover about 4 million outlets indirectly, but in the rural areas, we cover directly about 400,000 outlets. So we are indeed, percolating down, and I think brands like Center Fresh and Center Fruit and Alpenliebe are pretty much available all across. So the way we work is we have a hub and spoke model where we keep super stockists and they sell to the sub stockists. So there's like a hub, and there is a spoke, and there are multiple spokes around each hub. So that's the way we've been operating. However, we understand, like I mentioned, there is a cost to distribution and there is a time to distribution. So what we are now doing is looking for alternate mechanisms. So for example, we partner with Elastic Run, who are a rural coverage aggregator. So what Elastic Run does is it's got its own sales force. They go to shops with their handheld. They take orders for Perfetti, for Marico, for Ricket, for Nestle. And then they have warehouses which are common warehouses where all the products are stored. And then they distribute it through that channel to their stores. Right. So it's a way of putting the things together, piggybacking on the existing infrastructure so that the cost then gets distributed. Now, we piloted with them in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh fairly successfully, and we are now rolling it out into the south as well. That's one example. And I'll just give one more example, and then we can move on to the next one. The other interesting thing, and I talked about government interventions, is in Haryana, for example, the Haryana Agro Industries Corporation has actually approached us and said they're going to open 1,000 stores, right, which are going to be multi-brand stores across the state of Haryana. And they have told us, can you supply your products to our distribution centers so that we can then take your products from there and supply to the consumers who want it in the rural markets, and not just for us, but for a bunch of companies. So I think there are quite a few opportunities available. It's a question of really identifying the right partner, and the same partner may not be relevant to all states in the country, and making sure that we are able to customize our offering such that it's a win-win solution for everybody.
Very, very interesting. I know you also partnered or looking to partner with Ferns and Petals also, right? How has that been working out for you?
See, Ferns and Petals actually is a partnership at the other end of the spectrum, which is really in the e-commerce. So, what we are doing is we are taking baby steps in e-commerce, and there clearly, we are looking for partners like Ferns and Petals, for example, with whom we can partner and then reach our products to consumers' homes. But if I were to take a leaf out of that question and say, from a digital perspective, what are the things that we could do, to tap into this segment? One of the things, and I'm sure Sapna will relate to it very well, is we do geotagging of our rural outlets, right? So basis lat long, we have geotagged all our outlets. So what happens is we get real-time data on what kind of products are being sold, who is buying it, how much, and so on and so forth. And that helps us with a little bit of real-time decision making in terms of how we go about tapping into the rural opportunity. So that's one example of it. The other example is we have again partnered with a company called Brand Idea, right? So what they do is they cluster villages based on a whole set of parameters in terms of, red, green, amber, as to the potential of those villages. So we are working with them. So you take any district in India, you get a map of the villages with dots which are red, green, or amber. So obviously we go after the green dots first because they are the lower hanging fruits in terms of which villages, what is the best way to cover them in the most efficient and effective manner, and so on and so forth. So I think technology is, really, really playing a very, very big role in helping connect the, bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, with manufacturers like this.
Brilliant. That's a good segue for us to listen to what Sapna has to say. Well, so Sapna, I mean, what is your perspective of bottom of the pyramid for logistics?
Got it. So first of all, really thanks, Rajesh, the way you have set the context from the perspective of geotagging, information, gap analysis, coverage, ensuring connectivity, and so on. So, I mean, taking from there, so what's ultimately happening is we are doing more and more digitalization. So, but this is not something that we have started doing now. I mean, digitalization has been happening for last, decades, many decades. What has changed over a period of time is earlier we used to talk about process automations. Now, when it comes to digitalization, we need to do that for decision making. We need to do that for planning, to have transparency, to have more information, let's say information at the click of a button. And, now digitalization, what is there at the bottom of the pyramid from the logistics perspective, what we feel is, coming from the technology space, coming from the enablement space, what we feel is that at the bottom of the pyramid sits information, the data to enable data-driven decision making, data to enable optimized optimization in your entire, let's say, in logistics or other operations. And what kind of information are we talking about? We are talking about, I mean, if we talk about MapMyIndia says, our vision is to build the 4-dimensional time and space map, a real-time digital twin of the world, which definitely it includes both urban and rural geographies. If we talk about India, we are today, we have mapped all 6 lakh, I think now it's 7 lakhs villages in the country. 6 million road kilometers are fully captured, including both, kacha roads, pakka roads, along with multiple attributes in terms of connectivity. Which villages are connected with which highways, which roads, via which mode of transport. All this set of information we feel sits at the bottom of the pyramid, and it helps you. It helps you with both cost and time factors that drive businesses today. You need to be able to. You need to be cost effective. You need to be able to meet the timelines. So both these things can be achieved by having a good set of information right in front of you. So be it for optimizing your route, allocation of, let's say, allotment of transporter or individual vehicles, or even driver safety of your driver, geotagging, geofencing, getting transparency into violations that are happening to certain rule sets, various validations, checking for pilferages. All this can be enabled through location intelligence or location based artificial intelligence tools that we're talking about. And and we're talking about not just optimization, we're also talking about the expansion here. So once you optimize, you're able to expand. And in order to expand, you need to understand your gaps. You need to understand what your current coverage is. What are the areas which are still being uncovered? So Rajesh very nicely talked about having that red, amber, green kind of a scenario. So having that at a village level, definitely, that's one state. But having that right at the doorstep level, that's where the information today is available, and that's where we can actually reach at. So broadly speaking, I feel that, information sits at the bottom of the pyramid, and this information can be used for both knowing where your assets are to optimizing the reach to these assets, and basically are trying to put both demand and supply side closer to each other.
Okay, got it. Very interesting. So, get this right, geotagging of both the supply and the demand side. 6 million kilometers is just phenomenal. Taking, switching to the, I understand that you are enabling also multimodal logistics, right? I mean, there's question or two questions actually. One is, hey, how are you enabling it? More importantly, is the ecosystem adopting it? Without adoption, hey, then it becomes an academic exercise.
Very well said, Badri. So you're right, we are on the path of multimodal logistics, providing technology for the multimodal logistics. Let me first talk about why that's important and why that's relevant. So we all know that cost of logistics in India is about 14 to 15% of our GDP, which is very, very high as compared to about 7 to 8% in case of the Western world. So, and when you analyze why is it so high, it is so high because today still 70% of our logistics operations are by road. Plus, there is very inadequate transportation connectivity, which causes congestion in movement of commodities as well. And then you have to deal with the complex regulatory processes too. Now, in order to deal with all these challenges which do exist in the present scenario, clearly multimodal logistics is the answer. One, we truly believe that the overall cost of logistics reduces if we are able to optimally use multiple modes of transport and not just rely on the road as a as a mode. But in order to do that, you need to have the technology in place. You need to be able to do analysis. You need to be able to do planning. You need to be able to select the choice of transport. You need to be able to define the constraints in terms of, when latest what is the time which is available with you in order to make the goods travel from point A to point B. Likewise, there would be, n number of constraints that you would like the system to kind of deal with. So what we're trying to say is, being in the location AI space, we have all the tools available to be able to calculate a multimodal route, road, railway, ship, air, all things put together. Yes, there are challenges. There are challenges in terms of, getting all information, right, within the platform. But fortunately, the government also is quite is understanding these challenges and is able to put various stakeholders from the government perspective together, be it GSTN, be it shipping corporation or MORTH or various different departments that really impact these spaces. And utilizing those technologies all put together is what we're doing is we're trying to make a tool which would help people plan for multimodal logistics. It already is able to support some of our customers. Right now we are supporting, for example, road and rail transport. Going forward, we're looking forward to add air, ship transportation also, and even inland waterways also as part of the overall solution stack. And that's going to happen with the help of government, which we are on our way. Which I think we are on the right track with the government supporting us. Okay. And the entire industry, in fact.
Super, very good. So we have our first question from the audience. I'll read it out. I think Mr. Rajesh, you can help address that, and then we'll see if Ms. Sapna wants to add anything. So see, I mean, okay, infrastructure problems people understand in the rural areas, but they are saying, hey, the internet is weak or not adequate. So is there a resistance put up by the rural population? Automation of logistics operations, which is resulting in lower adoption. What is your point of view?
Sorry, is the question that is there a resistance to adopt technology in the rural market?
Yes. Yes, and it is also facilitated by slower internet. Yes.
Right. No, I think actually I would say with my limited experience, no. They're fairly open to adopting technology as long as they understand the benefit of it in terms of what's in it for them, right? I mean, today if you look at it, farmers in a completely not related area, by virtue of having technology, if they can cut out the middlemen and then earn more profits for themselves, that's something that they would like to do. It's just that they need to be educated on it and told about what is the benefit of it, rather than somebody just coming and thrusting something upon them. So I'll just give you a simple example. You know, in urban markets for wholesalers, we have this facility where they can order stocks on via WhatsApp. So they can just type, you know, Alpenliebe 2 jars and, you know, Mentos 1 box and so on and so forth. That comes into our system and then we are able to supply to them. Now we said, why can't something like this be done for rural? So we took the same concept and went to the sub-stockist and said, hey, sometimes, you know, a super stockist may not contact you the way he's supposed to contact, or sometimes you might just sell more and run out of stock. So just use this WhatsApp mechanism for, you know, sending your order in, and then we are able to service you. And that's working very, very well for us. So I think it's just a question of our ability to educate them and tell them what's in it for them. And then I think the imbibing of the technology becomes that much more smoother.
Okay, thank you. Sapna, any other point of view?
So I would say thanks to 4G, thanks to 5G, even thanks to these smartphones which are now available with almost every strata of the population in India. I really don't think that it is that big a challenge going now, and even going forward things are going to improve. Uh, then further, thanks to social media. I mean, I think everybody is on Facebook. WhatsApp, I mean, all these messaging applications, these WhatsApp groups, I mean, people have learned to use technology. And as long as we are able to provide simple, basic interfaces, so what do you call it, user-friendly interfaces, that's very important. So as long as we are able to provide that to the consumers, I don't think there's stopping anywhere. Yeah.
Super. Next question, I think you will have to have a big crystal ball in front of you. I think the next questioner is basically saying, hey, when do you think rural area will be at par with urban area in technology adoption, specifically for logistics? Any one of you can take it, please.
You want to
Okay.
go, Sapna?
I can try taking it. So when will it? So when is a very interesting point here. So see, I think all the time I feel that urban is gonna stay ahead. But yes, how much rural gets converted into the urban is the point to be considered. So let's say if you even if rural also there also we put the categories uh, of high, medium, low. We are seeing that people are more and more people are actually moving into that high strata. That's what is happening. uh, it will take time. India is huge, we have large population. It will take time for rural to catch up with urban. Rather than saying how rural would catch up with that, I would say we have to see that how much more urbanization can we start seeing within the rural areas. That's happening. There are trends clearly available, but honestly saying when it's going to happen is it's like predicting too much. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I
I
think we
think
are on a good track. Yeah, technology is being adopted. Yeah.
got it. I think basically we are saying, hey, for response to question number one, we are saying, hey, it's not as much too much resistance because they are seeing value in what we do. And second, we are saying, hey, it's not urban versus rural. I think collectively, I think our adoption is increasing. Okay.
Yeah.
Question number three, I just throw it up to you, Rajesh. I think you briefly spoke about what Haryana government was doing. So I think the question is, how can government incentivize business to adopt the latest in technology? I don't think they're talking in terms of urban versus rural, but I would request you to keep it to the bottom of the pyramid, if you will, in your response. What can government do to incentivize business for technology?
Yeah. So just to add one point to the previous, the comment that Sapna was making, we agree with that. I think it's a question of also saying, urban might adopt some things first, simply because of the nature of the way it is structured. But rural has the ability to leapfrog a few steps. They don't have to follow exactly the same, path for reaching where urban has reached, but their ability to leapfrog and move forward. And I think that's where the action and the opportunity lies, right? So just a small point on that one. I think on the other piece, definitely in a lot of areas, I believe public-private partnerships are the way to go forward, right? Because what happens is private companies like ours are interested in, generating demand at the bottom, help us to also experience the same kind of, product offerings that their friends in urban markets experience. But what government can bring to the table is they have this massive infrastructure, which I believe is under leveraged or underutilized, right? So it could be, for example, I'm just giving a very random example. They have these huge warehouses and storehouses for grain, right? For example, could those be maintained well, and a small portion of them are, apportioned for storing of consumer products, right? So not just from Perfetti, but from any other company, so that those are then finding a viable way to reach the rural consumer. So I think in terms of technology, again, they can provide the right kind of infrastructure in terms of the hardware part of the technology. In terms of hardcore infrastructure, there could be a lot of things that they can do. And if they're able to get to the right kind of a public-private partnership, I think that can provide a win-win solution for all concerned.
Okay. So no, good point. Go ahead, Sapna, and then I'll conclude.
Yeah, I just wanted to make another point on this. So, more than technology being a gap for rural, I think we're missing on the biggest challenge that rural has. So, when we talk about urban, it's all concentrated. When we talk about rural, it's all scattered. I mean, think of what a typical village population is. It's 2,000 to 3,000 households. That's all. So that's really the biggest challenge. And in order to solve that, what's important is to have since Rajesh, you talked about hub and spoke models, maybe more hubs. What's more important is to have more connectivity. And that's where, a government plays a big role in order to make sure that, these villages get more and more connected with various, by building more roads, by building more, let's say, hub points or points of distribution. That would really make a change, make a difference to the growth of the rural piece. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. I like the way Mr. Rajesh articulated this, right? So he's basically saying, hey, I am using the existing infrastructure that I currently have or getting into partnerships to understand demand. Once that is there, I know these are my top three products, and then I'm having to do this warehouses that I'm setting up to be able to serve it faster and cheaper. So you're saying, hey, can I piggyback on government because you have a ton of infrastructure already? Can you help me with storage, for example? Public-private partnership, absolutely spot on. But I think interesting conversation. Unfortunately, it's been fun, but I think we are coming to the end of conversation. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Rajesh. Any concluding remarks before I turn it over to Ms. Sapna?
So did you say concluding remarks? I lost you for a bit in between.
Oh, sorry. I said any concluding remarks from you.
Sure. No, I think I go back to what I started with, saying that, rural is huge. Rural is a huge opportunity. There are challenges, but I think in every challenge, we can see those opportunities. And the great thing about rural, I believe, is their ability to leapfrog some of the long, painful steps that the urban counterparts would have taken. So if we are able to identify the right buttons and the right levers that we need to pull, and get into it with the right kind of partnerships, I really think broken open in a very, very big way, which will fuel, consumer demand in the rural space for the years to come.
Thank you, sir. Sapna?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to conclude, See, what I would say is that since I started by saying that information, that's what sits at the bottom of the pyramid. That's really is the key for any decision making. Within the information space, I think location AI, location-based artificial intelligence, those tools, that is the single biggest shift which can make or which can bring in a real change in the whole ecosystem and can drive effectiveness, better productivity, and better reach.
Super. I mean, I think it was fun, right? I think when we say, hey, digitization at the bottom of the pyramid, I think we're starting off, we're drawing a parallel to, okay, let's talk about rural, and we're talking about the demand there. Opportunity is tremendous, and then it's also not linear growth. Hey, what rural does will go to urban. No, I mean, what urban does go to rural. No. Rural can reach far. I think a lot of these things can happen through partnership. Through that comes the technology and adoption. Technology like the location related AI, and then the maps. 6 million kilometers of roads mapped. So I think good. I think it's been a very insightful conversation for me. Thank you very much. Of Pando, I thank you, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank
Srinath,
you.
over to you.
Thank you, Badri, and
Thank you so
Sapna.
much, sir. And thank you so much, everyone, for an engaging discussion. And a special thanks to all three of you for taking out time and being here to make this possible. Thank you so much. And another thank you goes out to all our attendees as well who are here with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. And stay tuned as we'll be back soon with the next session.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thank you.